Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi and today I'm going to be discussing how you can build your vocabulary in order to write better essays, better personal statements, better cover letters, better CVs, and just be a better person. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just stay tuned. You were not going to watch this video without subscribing, were you? There is a button, it is right down below, just click it and you will make my day, and it's free. Thank you. Building vocabulary is very important regardless of whether you do humanities or not. People tend to think that, oh, knowing words is only important if you're studying English or history or economics where you have to write essays. If you're doing maths, biology, physics, then you only need to know like the basics. Nope. Nah. It ain't true. It ain't true. That's a lie. That's a lie. I was doing a prep session for BMAT and the guy who ran it, he explained to us there's an essay question at the end and they normally have 3 questions. One of them is medicine based, one of them is science based, and one of them is like pretty abstract and philosophical. And you know, people were asking, oh, should you always go for the medicine based question? And then he explained that when he sat the BMAT himself, he found that the medical question, it had a word that he didn't understand, and that word was begets. Not to be confused with the French bread baguette, no, begets. And I personally already know what begets mean, okay, but most people don't. So he had no choice but to do another question because he could answer that question because that was a word he didn't know. And that can happen in many entrance exams, in uni essays, okay? So you want to be prepared as well in terms of when going into higher education, to be prepared in case you do come across questions and tasks with words that you don't understand. It makes your life easier if you already know what things like it begets means, okay? Having a larger vocabulary bank gives you more flexibility and allows you to add more finesse and je ne sais quoi to the tone of your writing or your speech. If you are writing a piece that is aimed at high school children, year 7s and year 8s, and if you're writing a piece for people who are studying PhDs, the vocabulary you use is probably going to be very different, the tone you use is going to be different, the message is going to be different. It just makes your life that much easier if you know what words to use in what context to have the best effects. Don't make this really common mistake of just, I have a thesaurus but it's really big and it's up there, and I'm not getting that for this video because it's probably like a health hazard. But let's imagine that this is a thesaurus. Open your thesaurus, you know, replace every single word that you have with a fancier word in the thesaurus. Just flick through it and just spewt out thesaurus words all over your essay. What that does is it sounds like absolute crap. Number one, probably end up using words that are not appropriate in that context and that do not have the desired effect. Number two, it gets to the point where it's a bit condescending. Let's say you're doing English language GCSE and one of the things is you have to write a tabloid news article that is going to be read by people who barely passed high school. You cannot start putting overly long complicated words in there, because when you're reading it's like, oh, look at me, I know all these good words and I'm using all these good words because I'm so smart, and if you don't understand this, then you're not smart enough. This isn't for you. No, it's condescending, it's difficult, it's not enjoyable for the audience, and it doesn't get your point across. So don't do that, okay? I can make an entire other video on writing for your audience and using the correct tone and language for that, but this is focusing solely on vocab, okay? So you want to use vocab as a tool to write awesomely. Now, how do you build that vocabulary? Well, read books, okay? Read different genres, different eras. Read in different languages if you're trying to build vocabulary in another language, read in that language. I say the only reason why I did so well in both my English language and English literature GCSEs is because of how much I enjoy reading. I wasn't really fluent in English until I was about 6, but from year 3 until year 10, my head was always in a book. See, as a pianist, in order to know what a good piece of music sounds like, I had to listen to other people play, listen to my piano teacher play. My piano teacher, when she taught me a piece, she'd normally play it through first, that way I'd know what to expect, and then I'd learn the piece after I'd heard it played through once. That same way, in order to write a good piece of writing, you need to know what a good piece of writing actually looks like. and that's where reading comes in. And this isn't just English language, English literature, GCSEs or humanities A levels, but even, for example, personal statements. My biggest struggle when it came to writing my personal statement was that I wasn't sure what it was supposed to look like, what I needed to include to make a competitive application. So one of the first things I did was read as many personal statements, sample personal statements, asking people in medical school if I could read their personal statements. And doing that and researching that way, I knew what to get. Same applies to cover letters, even CVs. If you want to know what a good CV looks like, you can go read sample CVs. Ask your parents to read, if you can read their CVs, your friends' CVs. Read the CV of someone who actually got a job though. I'm just going to say this now. Make sure they actually managed to get a job with that CV. Don't read a CV that never got anyone anywhere. Reading is the easiest and the most effective way to learn vocabulary, because learning vocab isn't just learning a word. It's learning how to use that word in a sentence, when you should use that word in a sentence, what that word's connotations are, in order to improve the overall tone and attitude of your writing. If it helps, you can always make flashcards. I have an entire wallet of like flashcards for different things. Write your vocabulary down on flashcards, or have a little pocket book, have a little book. Every time you meet a new word, write it down in that book and write down its meaning, and then you can make flashcards out of that, and you have it there for reference in terms of all the new words you've learnt. That's also a very good technique, and that is used a lot when you learn another language, but it can be used to improve your English as well. See, one of the differences between reading and watching something is that when you watch something, it's at the show's pace, the movie's pace, the documentary's pace, whereas when you're reading, you read at your own pace, and that difference becomes exaggerated when you are trying to build your vocabulary, because if you come across a word that you don't know on a show on Netflix, you'd have to remember to press pause, and there might be a really interesting scene afterwards that captures your attention and then distracts you, and then you forget. You might not have access to subtitles that you need, and then you don't know how it's spelled, and it's very easy to forget. So using a book will be to your advantage. I think the same kind of goes for podcasts as well, and even audiobooks. Although audiobooks still are slower, because you're not seeing the word in front of you, seeing the sentence and the context which it's in. I personally think that you don't pick it up as well. When was the last time I even touched a thesaurus? Not even at GCSEs. Like, I very, very rarely used thesauruses because there's just no need. Like, I developed such a good vocabulary bank on my own. I never found myself in a situation where I needed to look up another word for what I'd already said in order to make my writing look better. If you're writing in drafts, you can use very simple language in your first draft and then improve the language in your second draft, but I tend to go straight into the fancy language, and then I often end up having to tone it down and use simpler language, because using longer words is actually going to make it harder to reach your word count limit. Long words tend to replace lots of smaller words. Not always, but often. So yes, that's everything from me. I hope this video was useful. I will link useful resources down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, press the like button. If you think anyone could benefit from watching this, then feel free to hit the share button and send it to them, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!